in regards to that is the chairman the last person to vote on the bill? Or do they kind of weigh in on the perspectives of both sides of the opposition and before the bill, before they make their final decision?
That's good. A good question. Anybody know, Ryan?
I didn't hear the question. Well, the last part of the question. The question is, with the chairman of any committee, or if you're looking at Chairman Valerio, does he wait until he hears from both sides, the opposition against the bill or for the bill, before he weighs in on his determination whether a bill should move forward? Like he's the one that, he's kind of like...
I'll take it. Joe Valerio, I mean, it depends. It depends on what committee it is. But this is why the people's names and who they are is very important. Joe Valerio has been a defense attorney for 50 years. So most of his perspective comes from this idea of how to be a defense attorney. And so depending on the issue, so if it's something that has to do with ability of a defense attorney to defend a defendant, he tends to already have his mind made up and he thinks he knows everything there is about the law when it comes to that. But chairmen are supposed, the chairman is in a unique position because he controls the agenda. If the chairman decides that he doesn't like your bill, he can just put it in a drawer, which means that he'll never have a hearing, he'll never be heard, and he'll never see the light of day. And they actually, they have the power to do that, and they do that all the time. And so, I think, Heber, you want me to take the meta about
How a bill really becomes a law?
how a bill really becomes law?
How the sausage is made.
Yes. So you heard the whole official thing. What you about to hear is how it really happens. What they don't teach you in class.
Yes. So, I'll tell, the first thing about Annapolis is, the first thing you learn is, the last thing you need to pass a bill is a good idea. They make that joke down here all the time. Down here, their job is not necessarily to pass the best ideas. Their job is to balance the interests of the different people that they represent all across the state. So, if you have an idea for a bill, a public policy that you think is important for the state and reform, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, who does this bill affect? Because when you come to the legislators, the first thing they're going to ask you is, what does this side or that side feel about an issue? So, passing a bill down here, the first thing that you should really do is start early. You need to find a legislator, identify a legislator that agrees with your issue. Particularly, you want to try and find a legislator on the committee that the bill will go through, because take police reform, or other things to do with law enforcement. All of those bills basically go through the Judiciary Committee in the House, and it goes through the Judicial Proceedings Committee in the Senate. So, in that committee, there are hundreds of bills, and every legislator has to vote on each one. So there are a lot of backroom deals, backroom agreements, backroom lobbying, trading of votes, all of these sort of things happen behind the scenes every day in the committee. And so you want somebody that's going to be in those meetings so they can figure out how to get your bill passed out of that committee. So once you find a sponsor that is on that committee, then you start working with that sponsor. They tell you that the General Assembly is in session for 90 days from the second Tuesday in January till the second Tuesday in April. But they actually come down here the rest of the year. They have hearings, they have meetings, they have all of these different sort of things. So once you have a legislator that can be your champion, that's the beginning. Then you start working on the members of the committee because the bills go to those committees, and that's their way of kind of delegating things to those people that have expertise in that area. So then you have to figure out who on the committee, and each committee then has subcommittees as well. And all of these things are in the directory. It's very easy to find out, but you get to find out who those people are. So then you have to talk to those members of the subcommittee first, because they will take up the bill first before it goes to the full committee. So, and just for something like the Judiciary Committee, just imagine, like, there's election law, there's criminal law, there's civil law, there's all of these different sort of things, and some of them are experts in one and not the other, and so they kind of break them out that way. Once you,
Can I inject a question?
Yes.
Then we got another question behind you too.
Okay.
My question is that there's some bills that can get on the, from what I understand, there's some bills that can get on the fast track. If you have the right legislator, or if the person requesting the bill is a person of particular influence, or has a lot of money, or put money in the legislator's campaign.
it's not that they necessarily go and get on the fast track, it's just that you can pretty much assume, like, if the chairman is the...
Let's say I'm the CEO of Under Armour.
Okay, you're the CEO of Under Armour. That means that, one, you have a professional lobbyist down here who spends all his time talking about this. So from the beginning, before the session started, he was putting in that bill. He had already reached out to all the relevant legislators and had meetings with them, talked about it, and that way he knows where everybody really is. That's one of the big problems down here is if you don't have if this isn't your job, it's very hard to catch. I mean, you have to put in a lot of lead time to get an appointment. So you gotta call and you gotta expect like maybe a 2-week wait. And as the session goes on, it gets harder and harder to get meetings with them because their time is filled up. So the 3 months before the session starts is actually more important to passing a bill than the 3 months that the session is on. If you can do a lot of that legwork first, meet with the committee, meet with the subcommittee members, figure out who the opposition is, meet with them, figure out if there's some kind of compromise or something you can work out, then you don't, then you're on the fast track.
So October through December.
Through December.
It's prime time.
It's prime time.
To meet with people to
Yeah,
get things going.
you should have your idea for the bill you want by October, basically what you want in it, find who your legislator is that will champion it, and then start working with them then, and try and clear out everything. So by the time you get to the session, all you're doing is demonstrating how many people support your bill versus having to explain the bill to people and work out any issues once you get started. Now, you may not be able to do any of those sort of things. The other thing I would say is there's other paths to passing things, particularly if, say, you're from Baltimore City and you want to pass a bill that really only affects Baltimore City. Every county and city has their delegation, and their delegation meets. Down here, there's something called local courtesy, where if a bill only affects a certain area, then the only people who get, the delegation votes on the bill. And if all the city delegates or senators agree to the bill, then the whole chamber will vote for the bill just out of courtesy to them because it doesn't affect their area. It only affects this one area, so only those people are the ones that really should have a say in it. So if you're thinking, question?
Question?
Is our question, sir? Okay. So my question to you and to Heber Brown. 2010 to 2014, out of 162 grand jury hearing, only 11 indictments were made out of 162,000 in 4 years. So my question to you, gentlemen, is what's the connection to certain bills vis-a-vis grand jury result, given the fact that only 11 was granted in favor of the defendant? So right now there is a bill in terms of police accountability in Maryland, right? In Maryland or Baltimore? Maryland. What does it say in terms of grand jury?
So,
and what's the connection?
If there really is not a direct correlation between the two, because a grand jury it's like it has its own rules, and the only part that the legislature can really affect in it is what laws the grand jury is actually looking at. And one of the problems that we have about police in communities of color is police, they usually like to say they felt threatened, they acted in self-defense when they do these shootings and stuff like that. But the question of self-defense is a tricky question with communities of color, because if police automatically believe that people of color are more prone to be criminals or more prone to have a gun or be doing something, then they feel justified in that they felt threatened, their life threatened, and that's what they communicate to the grand jury. And the grand jury, looking at self-defense laws, they just say, well, he felt threatened, he acted out of that threatened feeling, so he didn't act criminally. It's not that he hated the person, but the racism is more the institutional kind that just over-criminalizes people of color. And so that's the difficult part. But what we're doing here has an impact there is we're fighting to have citizens have a place in the procedures of police accountability, in the investigation of the police officer, and in that way they can voice that community feeling of like, yes, we understand that it's a tough job, it's a dangerous job, but you still have to have high standards because we're giving you great responsibility to be able to take people's lives. And so I think in the end, and then also there's another bill to take it out of the local prosecutor's hands and take it to either the state attorney general, or there's a position called the state prosecutor's office. So hopefully those people a little bit removed from the police department will take it, will go a little bit harder to try and make sure that they get an indictment in these cases, because they don't work with that police agency every day like the local state's attorney does. So in those ways, those are how we're trying to affect that, but it's one of those things where it's kind of 2 steps down, and unless we can infiltrate the institution of the police department and have citizens there, we won't ever get to that point where the grand jury is, because so much, the prosecutor and the police can do so much to shape what the grand jury is seeing that I mean, people say it, a prosecutor can get an indictment if they want. It's not a trial, so all they have to show is a preponderance of evidence. So, and it's more the prosecutor. So we're trying to take it out of that prosecutor's hands and take it to a higher level.
Yeah, I mean, to extend on that,